Step number one is picking a specific niche based on what your strengths are. Picking that specific niche is everything because you want to establish yourself as that top shelf choice, right? A couple popular niches to select, for example, are e-commerce, right? E-commerce is growing day by day. Another one is like health and wellness, could be health and wellness products. Another one is, coaches and consultants. So you, as an SMMA owner, as an SMMA CEO, can help them with your team to leverage the power of social media. Here's how you can start your own successful SMMA in 2024 and beyond. This video is going to be the complete guide, the complete step-by-step on how you can get into this specific space. So first and foremost, it's very important for us to understand exactly what an SMMA actually does and how that business model actually works. So first and foremost, if you understand it like this, is probably the best. There's all these wealthy business owners such as restaurant owners, e-commerce stores, lawyers where they have legal practices, dentists, all the businesses out there in the world where whether it's brick or mortar or it's online businesses, they all have one common thing. They want to make more money, right? How they do that is a couple different ways. And that is the purpose of a digital marketing agency or an SMMA, right? So one of the ways it does is it helps with their brand, right? It helps get their brand out to the masses. And when it gets out to the masses, people who are potential clients of theirs, they're going to be more interested in buying their services, right? Another form could be lead generation, whether, for example, like a chiropractor, maybe they want leads. And a good way for a digital marketing agency to step in is generate them high qualified leads to be able to go into their specific spot, right? Or e-commerce where they want sales, right? Your job as an SMMA owner will be to deliver sales or to deliver leads to them. And in return, they're going to be paying you a specific percentage or a specific retainer based on how your SMMA is structured, right? So this is the high level overview. Now, the purpose of this is going to be to give you a comprehensive guide for starting and growing a successful SMMA. So we're going to cover everything from the beginning all the way to the end and how you actually scale this business into multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, or even 8 figures. All right. That's what we've done with our own digital marketing agency. So without further ado, step number one is picking a specific niche based on what your strengths are, right? You don't want to go into something that you have no clue about. An edge, that doesn't give you a position of power, right? And you have to understand that the market is hyper competitive. And the only way to get to the top quick is by leveraging your passions, your strengths, and your skill set based around your digital marketing agency, right? So picking that specific niche is everything because you want to establish yourself as that top shelf choice, right? A couple popular niches to select, for example, are e-commerce, right? E-commerce is growing day by day. All these brick and mortar stores are actually closing down and they're all having online websites. Whether it's drop shipping, whether it's Amazon FBA, the future is e-commerce, right? So a really good niche to get into is e-commerce, right? There's a couple pros and cons to this, right? With e-commerce being so tech driven, it can be a little challenging, right? It can be a little difficult to step into that. And it is the deeper end of the pool, right? Another one is like health and wellness, right? It could be health and wellness products. For example, protein powders, protein shakes. It could be a health and beauty supply company. For example, we had Makeup Eraser as a client and they were responsible for selling makeup erasers, right? They got really, really famous for that. And we helped them get to that level, right? They went into Ipsy, they went into MAC, they went into all these big brands. And that's the niche that we decided to choose, right? But you can pick any specific niche that you want. Another one is, coaches and consultants. Huge, right? Online education is also the future of the world, right? People are sick and tired of going to this, going to colleges and universities, and what they want is alternate education. So you, as an SMMA owner, as an SMMA CEO, can help them with your team to leverage the power of social media to help those coaches and those consultants get more sales, get more clients, and at the end of the day, make more money, right? And in return, you get paid a specific retainer, whether it's $2,500 a month, $5K a month, $10K, and the numbers can go all the way up to $100,000 a month, even more sometimes, right? For really big agencies. But you can start small by charging $2,500 a month, for example, right? For any of these niches that I've, explained, these are just a few that I've explained, right? Real estate is another one. Real estate will always be in business, right? People need to sell properties, right? Whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, they have to get leads. And how do you get leads? Well, people are tired of the old method, right? When it comes to billboards, radio ads, newspapers, people don't want to advertise on there because the cost is really rising. The reason for that is because it's not targeted, right? With an SMMA, it's hyper targeted because you can actually go to Facebook, go to Google, you can tell them that I want XYZ people only seeing this specific ad, right? So for example, if you were to sell lipstick, you probably wouldn't sell it to men, right? You'd probably sell it to women. But the problem with the old method is that with a billboard, if you have a lipstick ad, everyone's seeing it, right? And you're, as a company who is spending their hard-earned money for advertising, they're kind of wasting like maybe 50% of it because maybe 50% of the drivers are men and they're only targeting. So they're wasting money on those 50% of people. Whereas with an SMMA, a social media marketing agency, you can hyper target specific individuals who are in the buying pocket for your clients. And now your clients are going to be able to pay you way, way more than the old traditional methods because they're actually getting a really good ROI, right? A really good ROI means they spend $1, they get back $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 in return. And maybe out of those $7, $8, you get $2, for example. Now you can see how the math basically works, right? So these are a couple popular niches. However, there's dozens and dozens of other niches out there. A big common question that I get is, what's the best niche? There is none because you have to pick the niche that's most suitable for you and make it the best niche that you possibly can, right? Every niche has pros and cons, but these are just a few that you can actually start with and start getting some clients and getting some results in advance, all right? Criteria for choosing a niche is market demand, right? You don't want to probably go into a niche that is so small where the TAM, right, the total addressable market is not big enough. You want to go into something where it's in an intersection of being big enough, but not having that kind of demand just yet, right? Because if it's too much demand, if there's too many agencies out there for that specific niche, then you're competing, your competition is very, very fierce. So you want to get into a spot where the future of that specific niche is really, really big, but the demand isn't really there, which means if you can position yourself as that high level, as that authority, as that top shelf choice, which by the way, just keep watching some of these YouTube videos here, which you're going to be able to do completely for free, right? Without having to pay anything here, just based on some of these things, you can establish yourself as that high level authority, right? That's that when it comes to, choosing a niche, market demand, passion and expertise. I already kind of covered that. Really important to not go into something that you have no passion about, right? It's like, you want to go into something that you're somewhat passionate about, right? The reason for that is because it gets very difficult, right? Sometimes, degree of passion about something, then you're probably going to be like, hey, when tough time comes, you're going to be like, maybe this is not for me, right? So for us, e-commerce was huge, right? We went into the e-commerce space because I personally loved the game, right? I was very, very passionate about it. Whereas maybe, for example, me personally speaking, like, maybe real estate wasn't for me, right? It's not something that I'm super passionate about. So I picked e-commerce with my digital marketing agency, Cans Marketing, right? So that's the niche we picked. So another thing is profitability, right? You don't want to probably go into something where people make less margins, like very, very, small, minuscule, like airlines. They make like 4%, 3%, 5% profit, right? That's just a crazy example, but you get the concept, right? There's a couple business models out there where they don't make much profit, right? Maybe like, like YMCAs or something like that, right? Like nonprofit organizations as well. So those are a couple of criteria on how you can position yourself and pick that niche that you want to pick, right? So step number 2 is going to be building your SMMA. You want to have a good structure, right? Everything is built on legal and finance, right? So when it comes to legally doing it, again, this is not legal advice. This is not financial advice, but you could look into tools like, for example, like LegalZoom, right? For us, we use LegalZoom for ourselves, right? Again, do your own research, talk to your own lawyer. If you have one, highly suggest that. But for us, I can only speak for myself. That's basically what we, chose to use. I think it was like $300-400, right? Just to get our LLC set up there. And then from there, for tax obligations, we did an S corp, right? Again, it's just like how you get paid. There's all these different structures. I'm not a lawyer, not a professional. You do your own research, but that's just our model that we have, right? So from there, once your business is established legally, again, we want to make sure that we stay within the rules of the government. We want to be extremely respectful to, the government that has allowed us to do business in this amazing country, whether it's America, whatever country that you're in. Just please, make sure that you follow the rules, right? Super, super key. The next thing is creating sort of an online home, which is basically your website, right? You want to have a professional looking website because when your potential leads, the people who are about to buy from you, when they are going to go, when they want to do some research on you, they're going to type your name up and they want to be able to see like, hey, are you legit? Are you, successful? The person that you say you are, right? You don't want to be in a spot where you probably don't have a website, right? So super key. You have something where it's like user friendly, it's, informative, a little bit about you. Videos are big, guys, by the way. I would highly suggest, instead of just putting some stock images, just put a video of yourself. People want to do business with other people, right? There's a big misconception in the market where it's, an offer, is it B2B or is it B2C? Well, I say it's H to H, human to human, right? At the end of the day, we all want to feel comfortable with the person that we're doing business with. So why not showcase yourself? Why not have your video there, right? Couple case studies, couple testimonials there. And if you don't have any testimonials or case studies, no problem. You can partner with someone, right? Whether it's someone who a contractor on Fiverr, wherever it is. For us, for example, for our business partners that we select to work with, they just leverage our case studies, right? So for example, I was talking about Makeup Eraser or any of the other companies that we've worked with, they can just use those specific case studies as their own, right? So you can pick whoever you'd like, to maybe partner with when it comes to like delivering your services for your clients. Instead of if you're brand new to the space, you may not have some of those testimonials, and it is a pretty competitive market. So you want to make sure that you're covered. So you partner with someone, who's a contractor or freelancer, whatever. Like I said, for us, it's, our clients choose to partner with us because we give them all our case studies, right? So having that on your website is super key. Developing a strong social presence is also big, right? Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I don't want to make you feel overwhelmed because some of these things can be, but all it really takes is just a couple posts. Maybe make maybe like a dozen posts on all these places and you should be good, right? Just with the type of content that you can talk a little bit about is what it is for your specific client and why is it important for them, right? The how is what they're going to actually pay you for. So that's a good structure and that's a good strategy on if you want to, put some sort of content out there to showcase that you're the real deal, you know what you're doing, and you're competent in what you do, right? So that's key. A couple tools and software. Again, you can get away with a lot of the free stuff. When it comes to project management, for example, just use Trello. That's literally what we started with. Now we use some pretty sophisticated, stuff. I think we pay $6,000 just for $6,000 a month just for our, project management tool. But, you can get away with Trello in the beginning, right? So like, you don't cut costs in the beginning, stay lean until you get your first few clients. Then from there, you can go a little bit more professional, right? So CRM systems you can use. I know we used to use HubSpot. It was like $50 a month, so not too much there. That was just to measure and manage our client relationships and basically track our interactions, make sure our clients are, getting the results that they want and the leads are being properly addressed when it comes to the different stages in the buying cycle so that no one is actually missed and no opportunities are lost, especially in the beginning, right? Super, super key there. The next thing is when it comes to some of your social media posts, you can use tools like Hootsuite, Buffer, and these are for like planning and automating social media posts, right? The way they work, high level overview, and we use them for ourselves as well, is basically you have an account with them. You put all your social media accounts, so your TikTok, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever it is, you make it one time, you put all the logins, you have a post, and it automatically just publishes it on whatever time that you want. You put, the hashtags, all this stuff can be automated to a pretty high level if you set it up properly, right? So it's a little bit of a pain in the beginning, but once you do it, it's really smooth and really clean, right? So that's that when it comes to that. A couple of analytics tools. You can use Google Analytics, especially for if you're trying to do some competitor research or you're trying to see which niche or which industry you want to go into. You can see the search volume of like how many people are actually searching for that specific keyword or that specific industry or that specific niche, right? So you want to be able to position, again, the things that you're doing at the highest level, which basically means fulfilling the demand that's already there, right? Instead of, trying to create demand which doesn't exist, just the demand is already there. You just have to position yourself in front of that demand. And these tools are very helpful, like Google Analytics there, right? To make data-driven decisions there. So now we're going to move on step 3, and this is the exciting part. All the stuff before that we talked about is the foundations of your agency. Don't skip it, right? I know a lot of people, even including myself, right? We like to do the things that are, maybe like acquiring clients. Let's get more leads. Let's get more sales. Well, it's very important to know how those leads will actually come in. Why will they even come into your business? Why do they want to do business with you? So the stuff we mentioned before is super key for that, right? So step number 3 here is acquiring clients, right? Couple different outreach strategies. There's organic, and then there's paid ads, right? So a couple ways when it comes to organic, especially in the beginning, a lot of people choose to use this because they don't really have the money. Maybe they don't have the money for ad spend. And they want to put in a little bit of labor, because at the end of the day, you'll always pay for something, right? There's no free lunch here. No one, we don't live in that kind of world. So you're either going to pay in time or you're going to pay in dollars. If you pay in time, it's usually going to take a little bit longer. If you pay in dollars, it's probably going to take a little shorter, right? So that's where the organic and the paid ads basically come in, right? So a couple different organic strategies, cold emailing. So you can find a couple tools out there, scrape that list and send cold DMs or cold emails, to the people who are in your specific industry, right? So you can use tools like LinkedIn, Sales Navigator. There's a couple other tools out there which you can just literally Google search, get a subscription. Some of these are like $29, $39 a month. Do it one time, scrape the list in your specific industry. So if you're trying to go for, for example, lawyers or, dentists, whatever niche that you want to select, you can get some of those emails and just basically do cold emails and send them out. And trust me, they work. If you set it up properly, they absolutely work, which again, you can go to this channel. There's a lot of strategies that we talk about there when it comes to that as well, right? Another one is social media outreach, right? So it's like Facebook or, Facebook groups especially. This is how we started, right? The first few clients that we landed were based on Facebook groups, right? So we were going to other Facebook groups, we would get people to say, hey, look, are you interested in XYZ in the services that we offer? Out of 10, for example, 2 or 3 of them would say, yes, I am. We'd book in like 1 or 2 calls and we'd close the deal, right? And that was that. So that was like literally how we first started. Once we made some money from that organic method, then we went into paid ads. And then we scaled there to multiple 6 figures a month from our digital marketing agency. All right. So that's a really good way to do it. You can use LinkedIn, like I said, Sales Navigator, Ulink. There's so many different options out there. Another way is the quickest way that we tell our partners and our clients is actually right there in front of them, right? Which means it's the referrals that they know, right? Chances are, if they're, the people that we work with are corporate level people, right? Where they're, other lawyers, they're high level individuals, right? Corporate workers, 9-to-5ers, entrepreneurs at heart. So those people, they have a good background, right? In, other, like we had this client, she was an HR recruiter for a really, really big company, I think it was like Fortune 500 company. And she was able to land her first, I think she was making 13, 14 grand a month with no ads, with nothing, with just based on the strategy that we had her go, just for the people that she knew already in her own network, right? So she didn't have to spend anything, 13, 14K coming in. She just quit her job just based off that. She took some of the money, put it in paid ads, and scaled her agency. I can't remember exactly what the numbers are, but I know she was pulling in quite a bit of cash. I think she was almost a 7-figure agency last time I checked, which was a few months ago, right? And this was just based off her referrals and her network. Same way we did ourselves, right? Like we landed our first few clients when we first started our agency was just referrals. We were young, we didn't have much money, and we just used the power of the people that we knew, right? So sometimes it's like right in front of us, right? We just have to go and activate that specifically, right? So that's that. Now, when it comes to pitching and crafting your services, it's super important to stay in sync from the marketing all the way down to the sales and also to client fulfillment. It's all one line, right? A big mistake most people make is thinking that all these things are individual when they're actually not. They're the exact same. The promises we make on the marketing, we have to show up to the sales call the same way, and we have to fulfill for the client the same way. Actually, I would argue is under promising and over delivering. That's the way to actually, scale a really, really good company, because you want your clientele to be your sales reps, because they love the service. They loved it so very much that they're now telling their friends, they're telling their family members, and now you're getting free business without having to pay for them, without having to pay for ad spend. Right? So that's super key on how you position and how you package your services for your SMMA, right? So you want to be able to package your script in a way where it just delivers so strong and it's in unison from the marketing that you're running, right? So high level promise, whatever it is, based on your specific niche and your specific offer that you're going to create, right? So you want to highlight your unique selling points, right? This is why it's important to go into that specific niche that's based on your strengths, right? Because you can like start to identify and, communicate of what sets you apart from other SMMA companies and your competitors, because chances are they're not only hopping on calls with you, like they're hopping on 3, 4, 5 calls. And how do you position yourself differently? At the end of the day, everybody wants something that's new, unique, and more superior than anything that they have ever heard before. So your job is to be that, right? Or else you're going to get left behind. Again, if you're a little unclear, if it's a little overwhelming, no problem. Just go ahead and make sure you take a look at some of the videos that we have here for you guys, and you'll be able to literally position yourself as that top shelf choice and start making $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month, probably, with just following some of these free videos that we have, right? Another thing you can do is you can offer free audits or free trials. Personally speaking, I'm not really the biggest fan of it. But if you don't have a good structure around some of these things when it comes to like knowing exactly what you're doing, you can just offer a free trial. No one really has anything to lose, and you only have something to gain, because you may not get the money up front, but you can gain the experience of what it takes to actually land a client and service them, communicate with them, and try to deliver the best possible service that you possibly can, right? What that does is it gives you a little bit of confidence. And a big part of being an entrepreneur, an online business owner, is confidence, right? You want to be in a spot where you feel like, oh, you know exactly what's going to happen when you land a client, right? A big part that I see, a big problem, I see a lot of people make, especially our clients, for example, is sometimes they get ahead, they get in their own heads. And it makes sense because, they're corporate workers. They've been working their 9 to 5s for 20, 30 years, for example. Most of our clientele are more sophisticated. So it makes sense. If they're able to get the people who win big are the people who are able to get some of that confidence. So sometimes we recommend people like, hey, just offer a free audit, free trial, just for maybe 2 weeks, right? Get that confidence, get that first client. Now your brain associates like, oh, this is exactly how to get it done, right? So you build that trust as well with the client, and they can refer you over. There's so many different opportunities that we can go from when it comes to that, but land your first client, do whatever it takes. All right. Super, super key. All right. Now we are going to go into step number 4, which is delivering results for your clients. All right. This is the 90% that can move this is the, 10% that can move the 90% for you. Clear communication is everything. And it starts from the onboarding call, right? So for example, on the sales call, you close your client. Next step is you want to schedule your onboarding call on the sales call, or if you're in person, schedule the onboarding call on that meeting, because people have buyer's remorse, right? It's a real thing. They don't want to feel like, people made a big investment. For example, you started working with them for $5,000 a month. As soon as that first sale comes in, unfortunately, most company owners and most company CEOs, they're like, oh, got the client, move on to the next. Well, it's like, no. Now is the actual time to deliver the results that we want to deliver to the client. And a big part of that is making sure they don't have any sort of buyer's remorse. The way we do that, and the way we advise our partners and our clients to do that, is by booking the onboarding call on the sales call and explaining exactly how that onboarding call is going to look like. They're basically going to get a one-on-one dedicated account manager that is going to be throughout their whole journey with them. That's their point man for everything that they need, right? And then it's like, hey, XYZ is going to happen. You're going to get a welcome email. You're going to get a contract. So now the client's like, okay, got it. I just gave this person $5,000 who might have been a stranger, but now I can feel, somewhat confident because I know I have that onboarding call scheduled. I know exactly what the next step are going to look like and what's actually going to happen on the onboarding call and beyond. Right? So super key, you make people feel very, very comfortable, because the sale that you're making is not only collecting the credit card, there's multiple other sales that you need to make, right? Sale number 2 you need to make, like I said, is buyer's remorse. Once you tackle that, then the third and final thing that you have to make sure is people actually follow through with the services that you actually offer, right? Sometimes, clients come in, and this usually happens with really, really successful clients. They come in, they pay you $5,000, $10,000 a month. And now they're ghosting you. And you're just like, you just paid me $10,000 a month. Like, what's going on? Right? Because you weren't able to deliver that stickiness factor to them. Like, hey, you need to show up to the calls, right? You need to give us some of the accesses that we require from your end, because this is a partnership. I'm not like working for you. We're working together on this thing with you. Super, super key for you to establish yourself as that, right? And a big mistake people make is positioning themselves as like they're an employee. It's like, no. you run a digital marketing agency, you run an SMMA, and if you're really good, you are not going to work for them, you're working with them. It's a partnership here, right? You're the marketing wing of their company, basically, right? So you want to really make sure that they're bought in to your process. And again, that starts from the marketing, then the sales, then the onboarding call, right? So again, you see how it's all a straight line. Super, super key there. All right. So communication, like I said, is everything there for clients. Reframes and pre-frames, right? That's how you deliver really exceptional client results. And then of course, it's like focusing on the things that actually matter, that are actually going to make the clients the most amount of money. One of the first things that we focus in on is quick wins. How can we have wins that clients, as soon as they come in within the first week, how can they get their first few leads? How can they get their first client within the first few days? It's like really looking at your whole success, how you get a client successful. And if you don't have a client, if you don't have a system for that, I would highly suggest that before you launch your agency is like understanding what the client journey is going to look like and trying to make sure you whatever that X desired outcome is, trying to make sure, bring it down all the way to the least amount of days, the least amount of steps, the least amount of money spent by the client possible. Because the first few days are very fragile, right? That's what determines if the client is actually gonna get the value, gonna feel like they're getting the value for the money that they are paying you, right? So super key. We were very intentional about the desired outcome and the desired result that we want to get our clients for, right? So that's that when it comes to that. Now I can go a little bit into Facebook ads, Google ads, the type of content if you're doing some content stuff for your clients. But ultimately, it's whatever's going to give them the 10% of results. Whatever is going to give them the 90% of results, you want to do the 10% of it in the beginning. So I'm going to let you think of it from your own perspective. Like I said, there's so many different types of services out there. And we can go a little bit deeper into that. Just let me know in the comments if you'd like me to cover, one of the things specifically. But for now, I'll just let you and your entrepreneurial brain figure that out for yourself, because a big part of entrepreneurship is being resourceful and figuring things out. All right. But let me know in the comments if you need my help. All right. Now, section number 5, step number 5 is reporting and retention. Super key, guys. When we get a client that is not just for 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, we have a belief where we need to have lifelong team members and lifelong clients, right? So retaining our clients is our utmost priority, right? Because once we have a client, that's the beauty about having an SMMA is you land one client, for example, you're making $5,000 a month. Next month, you're not starting from zero. You're starting at $5,000 a month. The base is at $5K, right? That's the beauty. When it comes to e-commerce, for example, if you sell $100,000 worth of product in month number 1, month number 2, you're at zero because you already sold that 100K product. Now you're starting at zero. But with an SMMA, a digital marketing agency, if you sell a $5,000 monthly retainer, next month you're still at 5K. That's your baseline. Then you add another client, 10. Now month number 3, you're starting at 10K. Right? Most people would love that kind of money, right? That's 6-figure income right there, right? And if we see what the statistics are on, how many people make 6 figures a year in America, I think it was 15%. 15% of people only make 6 figures. And with this agency model, it's like 2 clients. That's the beauty about having this, right? And I'll tell you guys, if you make 10K a month, for example, you can easily make 100. Like it's actually way easier to go from 10K a month to 100K a month versus it is to go from 0 to 10K. 0 to 10K is way harder, right? So like really understanding that is like, oh, I just need to figure out going from 0 to 10 is the hardest, right? So once you figure that out, now you can actually start scaling from 10 to 100. And from 100, you can go to 250. 100 to 250 is actually not that difficult. From 250, that's when things start to get a little interesting. All right, that's when you need to start having teams and kind of go from there, right? But from 10 to 100, you really just need like 2 or 3 people, right? 2 or 3 people. Now, how that works, you need to have an account manager. If you're running paid media, for example, and that's where we come into step number 6 is scaling your agency to 100K plus per month, right? It's all about positioning the right people and putting them on the right spots inside of the bus. And you, my friend, as the company owner and as the company CEO, need to make good decisions when it comes to that and understanding who is a good candidate for which role specifically, because now you have to start becoming a master manager, right? This is where, in the beginning from 0 to 10 is probably you yourself, you're grinding it out, you're hustling, right? If you're not using a team, But once you start hiring your first 1 or 2 or 3 people, then you can start to step away, right? So the first person to hire is an account manager, is that client communication specialist who can come in, understand what the marketing is looking like, what the marketing team is doing, what's working, what's not working, and understands that part and has a really good knack for talking to clients, right? You want to be able to have the best possible person who has clear communication, who actually goes always over communicate, by the way, right? If you under communicate, the client starts to feel like, hey, it's not working, even if it is, right? There's so many instances, like I remember, because we didn't have much good communication, we never really cared for it in the beginning when we first launched. We didn't think it was important, and we learned the hard way because our marketing team was crushing it for our client. I think we got them I think it was like 1,800 leads, and we thought we were high-fiving each other, but we came to realize the client fired us, and we were like, excuse me, you got 1,700 leads. We were high-fiving each other 3 days ago. What's going on? The client's like, oh no, you guys didn't deliver anything to me. And we're like, well, look at these 1,700 leads. And the client's like, where is that? Turns out it was going to their spam folder. 1,700 leads. We're talking, who knows how much? That's hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. Literally went to their spam because we didn't communicate with the client. That came back to us, and it was our fault, right? This is why you put an account manager who can take all that stress completely away from you. The next thing to hire is your core service delivery. If you're doing content, you hire a content specialist. If you're doing media buying, you hire a media buyer, right? Whatever it is that your main specialty is, if you don't have a team, maybe you're doing it yourself in the beginning, you hire someone full-time dedicated to that. If you don't hire someone full-time, no problem. You can hire a contractor, right? Again, our clients, our partners, they just don't have to hire anyone from the beginning. What they choose to do is literally just hire our team from the beginning. So they don't have to ever service or ever fulfill on any of the services themselves. They can just become the company owner and the company CEO, right? So you see exactly this is how you start scaling your company, because you can't go really far by yourself, right? 1 + 1, especially in business, equals 11. All right. Super key to have the right people on the bus, right? So once you hire a media buyer, for example, once you hire that core, person there, the next step is, at this time, you're probably, doing some of the lead generation yourself. You're probably closing some of the deals yourself. The next step to add is a sales rep, so that you can start taking yourself out of the sales, right? So for example, for us, for our offer, we have about 4 different setters, and we have 4 closers too now. So we just hired an extra closer. 4 setters, 4 closers. Each closer brings in about $180K a month, right? So you can do the math yourself, right? It just becomes a machine. But in the beginning, when I was first selling our offer, I took it to about $150K a month, right? With doing some other things with other, CEO stuff. But at the end of the day, I wanted this business model to be working by itself without me having to be involved in the day-to-day, right? That's where this $1 million agency system was basically born. So if you like what you heard, and if you want us to potentially launch your own agency completely done for you, go ahead and book your call down below. All these steps that I've talked about, we can do it all completely done for you, while helping you and training you into becoming that CEO you need to become in order to run this business successfully. All right. We also have a on track for 6-figure guarantee, which again, you can just go ahead and apply down below. We only work with a few because this is so hands-on. It's kind of like, we're like the McDonald's. We're like the McDonald's franchise off the online business world. So go ahead and book your call down below. If you got value from this, let me know in the comments down below. And if you want me to cover any other video, let me know in advance as well, right? Again, we make these videos for 2 reasons and 2 reasons only. Number 1 is to give you results in advance, right? So you can start taking some of these things, implementing them, land get your first few leads, get your first few clients, make some money, right? And then hopefully the second thing is, I would like for you to just hire us instead of you trying to figure this out all on your own, spending time, spending, money, spending resources, and most importantly, the mental pressure that it takes, especially when you're first launching your own business, when you don't know really what you're doing, right? You're just launching this and you don't really have anyone there. That mental stress of it may be working out, right? Potentially you spending tens of thousands, if not over 100K to try to get this online business model to work. Instead, just partner with us only if you like us, right? So completely very, very transparent here. So go ahead and book your call down below, apply for one of the spots that we have, and we'll see if we can potentially help you, right? For the rest of you guys, go ahead and subscribe to this channel and let me know what specific videos that you'd like me to create for you guys. All right. Until next time, take care.